Hey, Mitch.
Oh, hey, Ed. Mind if I talk? I'm a little nervous when I take tests.
Look, just please don't move.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's all right. Reaction time is really a factor in this, so play attention, okay? Now, answer
Is
as
this the
quickly as
test
you
now?
can. Yeah, look, you're in a desert walking along the sand when all of a sudden there is...
Is this the test?
Yes. You look down and you see a tortoise. Mitch, it's crawling towards you.
What's that?
You know what a turtle is?
Of course.
Well, same thing.
Never seen a turtle before, but I get what you mean.
Okay, look, can we continue? How about describe in single words only the good things that come in mind about your mother?
My mother?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about my mother. Oh, I remember she was a great lady. We used to go to the mall when I was about 4 years old, and she would give me some money to go feed the hamsters. And one time my mother took me out to the woods and she said, I'm going to bake you an apple pie. But she says, you can't use those apples because those are rotted apples. But I ate them anyway. And then there was the time my mother said, don't ever do a YouTube show with some guy from Australia because, hey, did I pass the test?
Hi, this is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch Halleck.
And welcome to another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. If it's your first time here, thank you so much for joining us. If you are a regular viewer, thanks for coming back. Hope you enjoyed it. But hey, Mitch, if you want to find out a little bit more about the show and some of our 55 previous episodes, what can you do?
I don't know. No, Ed, it's as easy as taking a VoIP comp test, Ed. All you have to do is hit subscribe and then, or just go to their page. I mean, you know what, maybe one of those buggers that don't want to subscribe, but if you do, go to the Mitch and Ed homepage there. And I think we're up to almost 60 episodes of various movies and TV and nostalgia shows and stuff. And you can see all that. And please subscribe because it makes our numbers go up. And then if you're afraid you're going to miss our show every 2 weeks, then just hit notification and we'll notify you when we have a new show. And please like the show and tell your friends about it. Maybe there's like a friend of yours that likes Starsky and Hutch or The Empire Strikes Back or Land of the Lost, and say, hey, you know, these two guys, they actually talked about it. And you know what I like to think of us as? I like to think of us as a radio. So if you're working around the house or you're working on your computer, just hit the play button and they'll just go one into another, and you can watch Ed and I talk about movies like we're about to do today with the 1982 classic celebrating its 40th anniversary, the one, the only, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner.
Yes, Blade Runner. Now, the cult classic, it wasn't a big hit at all when it came out, but were you one of the ones who saw it in the cinema? I know I saw it in the movies. What about you?
I was actually, when you say one, I was one of 5 people that saw it in the cinema. I saw it on opening day with my mother because it was rated R here. And I was 1982, so I wasn't of age. You had to be over 17. So I think I was 14 or so. So my mom picked me up. We went to the afternoon screening of it. I think it might have been the first day, first show, maybe. It was Friday. It was in June, late June. And there was only 5 people in the theater. And I should have known there was a problem because they had at the time these big, massive movie screens. And, you know, Star Wars, Raiders, they were on the big screen. This one was in theater number 5, which was the one that was off to the side, which was a really small screen, almost like the size of your living room, and maybe about 40 or 50 seats in it. So that was my first sign that we were in trouble. But I was looking forward to Blade Runner because Harrison Ford was just coming off of back-to-back hits. 1980, Empire Strikes Back, 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark. This was his next big movie, 3rd movie there in a row. It was going to be huge, right? They had trailers for months, which made no sense whatsoever. They had this song from the 50s. I think it was the Ink Spots. It was called If I Didn't Care. It's an old song, like If I Didn't Care. And they'd show Harrison Ford running on a rooftop, and you'd see quick cuts, and you heard the music, and you didn't know what was going on. And it just said, shh, Harrison Ford. And the letters came up, Blade Runner, from the makers of Alien. And you're like, oh my God, this is going to be spectacular. And I do believe, and this was, I think, the first time Harrison Ford's name was above the title. It was the first time he was like the headliner, and then the movie, because he was such a big deal. And let me just tell you, I went into that movie. It was rated R for some violence and some sexual scenes, I think. And when the lights came on, I was just puzzled. I didn't know what I just saw. I mean, I saw a movie, but I didn't really get what was going on. It was like the story didn't make much sense. But I'll tell you this, my mother, not Leon's mom, but my mom, and I didn't get mad at anybody and shoot them, but my mother said they will be talking about this movie 50 years from now. And I don't know how she knew that, because she was a big movie sci-fi fan, but she said they will be talking about this because it was so ahead of its time. She said the look of it, the story, it'll never go away. And here we are at 40 years later, proving my mom right. And people still talk about Blade Runner because it was groundbreaking, don't you think?
It was the production design by Sid Mead was the futurist Sid Mead was spectacular, and it was the benchmark that we use for future movies. In fact, it influenced so many, and still today when we think of that grungy, not post-apocalyptic future, but that grungy sort of, no resources,
the
dark,
cyberpunk
rainy
stuff.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. It's all based on Blade Runner. Now, the film is based on the book by Philip K. Dick that came out in the late 60s called Do Androids Dream About Electric Sheep?
Electric Sheep.
And I remember I can't remember the order of it, because I was obviously a big Star Wars, Indiana Jones, big Harrison Ford fan. And I remember when I saw the novel that came out, it says, you might be able to see it there, now filmed as Blade Runner. And of course, I go and read the book, and it's quite different to the actual movie. One, they're not even called Blade Runners. That was sourced from a whole nother story about people who would sell like bootleg surgical equipment.
Yeah,
what they called Blade Runners. It was quite different. It was set in a different year. I think it was set in 1992, the book originally. They weren't called replicants. They were called, they were androids or Andes.
Androids, yeah.
There was a whole, basically it was quite different. But the movie, the book is a classic science fiction piece, and they were trying to film it for many years. They had some interesting filmmakers involved, and it eventually came around to Ridley Scott. And
I think, what's the fellow's name? Hampton Faulkner, is that his name, or the screenwriter? It's Hampton something.
Yeah,
I believe that. But he was trying to sell it for years, like you said, and it would just go in development hell, as they would say. And then it wasn't until Alan Ladd Jr., the late great Alan Ladd Jr., who just passed away a couple of weeks ago, he greenlit this story and said, let's go ahead and invest money. So they started putting a couple $1 million to develop this movie. And then Ridley Scott comes along off its success from Alien, and he's looking for a new project, and he saw it. And you're right, they totally changed it, because originally the story was called Dangerous Days, and then they changed it to Blade Runner. And they started changing the story around, because you're right, in the book, Do Electric Sheep, Androids Dream Electric Sheep, there's a whole bunch of weird stuff about this, like religious type of story about this guy named Mercer. And if you believed it, and they're saving up money to buy, like, I know Deckard wants to buy he wants to buy a sheep. There's no animals left in the world. They're trying to save money to buy pets, because that's a thing too. And there's this whole other story. It's a totally different thing, totally different. But they get the green light. They go ahead. They start putting more and more money into it. Warner Brothers, at the time, there was a documentary on ABC television here, and I remember watching it. This was like in December or January. And they went to the set of Blade Runner. They went to two movies. They went to Pennies from Heaven, with Steve Martin and Bernadette Peters.
Yep.
And then they went to the set of Blade Runner, because at the time, Warner Brothers was spending a lot of money. And like you said, Sid Mead, they did a huge set. There's so many layers to the Blade Runner set. I mean, the attention to detail is mind-boggling. Like covers of the magazines that you'll never see, even on 4K. When he walks by a newsstand, they're all like individual titles and fine detail on the writing, the graffiti. It's literally layers upon layers and stuff. And they were like, look at all this production going on and all this money being spent. And are they going to get their big return on investment? And I remember them talking to Harrison Ford and like, this is all riding on your shoulders because you're the star. And he was a little hesitant, a little reluctant too. And there was a lot of tension on the set of this movie. Let me just tell you that, because there's a great book that I read years ago, and it's called, that's it, Future Noir, The Making of Blade Runner. And I still have it here somewhere in the tomb, the pit, the dungeon down here. You would think it's like a madman. You know, Apocalypse Now, when they go upriver and they have to take out Colonel Kurtz, it wasn't that bad, but they were so worried about this movie, like what's going to happen. The studio's going to go crazy if they don't make their money back. Harrison Ford, rumor has it, actually got in a fist fight. I don't know if you ever heard that he and Ridley Scott went at it because Ridley Scott wanted some type of direction and Harrison Ford was fighting him on that stuff. And they didn't see eye to eye.
No, I know Harrison Ford said it was the toughest film he's ever been on. And I think Ridley Scott had said the same, because Harrison Ford knew what he was talking about, so they just bumped heads and found it quite difficult, even towards the end where, there were changes that Harrison Ford didn't want to do, but he was contractually obligated to do as well, like with the voiceovers. So there's a variety of, problems with it. Even before Harrison Ford came on, he wasn't the first choice. They were looking at Dustin Hoffman, of all people, to play Rick Deckard. And amongst, like every other actor, I think they were also looking at Robert Mitchum at one point. So he wasn't a youngster by that, in 1982 by any stretch of the imagination. So there was a lot of troubles. I know the first, the opening scene they were doing, the first 2 weeks of shooting, they had the set all set up and they had put the pillars upside down by mistake. And Ridley Scott goes, no, we've got to redo it. So they flipped it. And then after that, he said he didn't like it anyway. So they were already 2 weeks behind by the 2 week point. So, it started off on a, bad footing.
Bad note. Yeah.
It's amazing that it actually got made.
Well, the other thing too, the casting's all over the place too, because you mentioned they couldn't find a good lead for the movie. They eventually got a Harrison Ford. Funny you said Robert Mitchum, because he's from Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is right down the street. No, he wasn't there, but they did wanted to film noir, Mike Hammer, Dashiell Hammett type of storyline, Sam Spade. So, and they even had the original costume design. Ford was in a trench coat, which he still has in the movie, but he had a fedora on. And the story is that he came to the set right when he was making Raiders, and he came in wearing the fedora, and Ridley Scott hit the roof. And he's like, no, you can't wear that, because that's what we're going to have you wearing Blade Runner. He's like, I just wore this in this movie I'm making called Raiders of the Lost Ark. So they changed that look on there, and they gave him the crew cut. Yeah. Actually, it's kind of a crew cut. It's not really that much. It's a shaggy scissor cut thing. But they also went weird. They cast Rutger Hauer, who I only saw previous to that was in a movie called Nighthawks with Sylvester Stallone and Billy Dee Williams. He played a terrorist. And that's the only way I knew Rutger Hauer. I didn't know anybody in this cast, because Edward James Olmos, he'd go on to Miami Vice. That's not on yet. Brian James, don't know. He played Leon. I'm trying to think of anybody in that cast that was recognizable. Daryl Hannah, was Splash out? I think Splash had come out that year, or maybe in 82.
Splash 82 or 83.
Yeah, so around there, right? So
and Sean Young wasn't well known at that point.
No, because Dune was in 84, so she wasn't really that popular, right? And Emmett Walsh, I think I saw him in a movie called Cannery Row with Nick Nolte and Deborah Winger. He was one of the little townsfolks in that movie. But this was really like an unknown cast. The only one I think is recognizable is if you're a fan of The Shining, the actor that plays Terrell
Yes.
was the bartender in The Shining. So there's that.
Yes, that's true. But even then, you wouldn't is it William Sanderson?
William Sanderson plays J.F. Sebastian.
Yeah, as well with that aging disease.
Yeah.
I think that they all
syndrome.
fit in really well. And it's a well acted movie. It's just it's a bit confusing, I think, maybe on first, especially when you first saw it, because nowadays we're used to those maybe not deeper movies, but I suppose a more richly textured movie, whereas when we sort of went in to see this, I was 12 and I'm going,
yeah,
well, this isn't Star Wars. I was expecting
Star
Wars.
No, and you got to remember 1982 was a great year for movies, for science fiction fans. My God, we would have E.T. that summer. We would have the Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Poltergeist, everything and their brother was coming out in 1982. And then Blade Runner just gets thrown into the mix. Like literally every week or every 2 weeks, there was a brand new sci-fi classic that you'd go back and look at. I think even The Thing came out that year.
The Thing did. That flopped.
Yeah.
Tron came out.
Tron came out. Yeah.
Sort of didn't. Conan the Barbarian was 82.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big year for films, and it just got forgotten. Not forgotten.
It did. I mean, for the money. I mean, I don't know what was the final production cost on this.
I think it was about $30 million, which wasn't.
Was it that much? Yeah.
But it wasn't a huge amount, but it actually made $41 million at the box office. So it did okay.
It took a while, though.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was going to say they pulled it out of the theaters. It was out because it was like it's not like nowadays where there's 1,000 theaters for every movie. This was in about 1,400 screens across the US. But after 2 weeks, you got E.T. knocking on your door, and that's playing to sold out audiences. They just say, hey, that movie's not moving? Get Blade Runner out of here.
Yeah.
Put another E.T. showing in there. So yeah, Blade Runner didn't find its audience, but everybody talked about it. I remember it opened up big that weekend, but then word of mouth got out there that it was confusing. It was kind of dull and boring, and no one really understood what was happening. So it died. But you know what's so funny? It starts showing up in midnight screenings. Okay. I remember in New York City in 1983, you'd look at the newspaper, and on Saturdays and Friday nights, they'd have midnight showings of Blade Runner. So it slowly started to build that cult following even back then, 59 years ago. So there was that.
And as we spoke about, the production design, we can't not mention the visual effects by Douglas Trumbull, which were absolutely amazing. That opening shot of where you're going to the Tyrell building, using force perspective, the way the spinners flew, that lens flare that you would probably remember from Close Encounters of the Third Kind as well. That real integration was amazing. And just I did love not just the Voight Kampf machine, but also the I don't know what the name of it is, but where he's trying to actually 3D somehow going into that photo, where he's got
the photo enhancer,
photo scanner.
I always think of that too when I zoom in on Photoshop if I'm working on something and I have to go in. It's like click. No, that's kind of cool. But you know what's so funny now looking back at the movie? There's a lot of companies that don't exist anymore. Like Atari was a big sponsor.
Yes.
There's a big neon Atari light in the background. The phone companies, there's a phone. He goes to make a phone call to call Rachel, but it's a video phone.
Yes.
But I do believe they have the AT&T logo. That's not the one that exists anymore, the company.
Yeah, Pan Am, I think they had as well.
Pan Am, TDK, which was a cassette.
Yes.
I remember audio, TDK. They're when he's running on the rooftop, their logo's in the background. Well, Coca-Cola is still around. There's a lot of logos that did survive the whole thing. But we didn't even really talk about the story yet, because the story, the reason why people didn't get it, because it wasn't a straightforward cops and robbers, good guys and bad guys type of thing. It was like one of those movies where they show you if you want to call them bad, their perspective, they're on the run. But the reason why they're on the run is because they have this pre-programmed 4-year lifespan, and they've become like sentient in a way. And they don't want to die like anybody else, and they want to know why they're there and who made them, and can they get more life and all that. And they were just made to be soldiers, workers, sex slaves, and they were just like just playthings. They were just like a regular household blender or
Appliances,
toaster.
yeah.
You're not supposed to think about it, but they made them, as they used the quote in the movie, they made them more human than human, and they actually became alive, like Pinocchio. They actually became a real person. So you follow Roy Batty, the leader, along with Pris and Leon, and of course we've got Zora. But then we've always got this mysterious. When I saw the movie, I remember doing the math in my head, and I said, "Hey, he made a mistake there," because when he sits down and talks to M. Emmett Walsh's character, it'll come to me. He says there was an escape in the off-world colonies, 6 skin jobs. They jumped ship, they killed 23 people, they slaughtered everybody, and they made their way back to Earth because they're trying to get into the tower. Why did they come there? Because you tell me, pal. No one knows why they're going there. But if there's 6, one gets fried on an electric fence.
Yep.
That leaves 5, but we only see 4. And it always bugged me. Was it a mistake in the dialogue, or where was the 5th or the 6th replicant?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. I think you
Rachel?
assume something happened to them off world on their journey back to Earth. I think that's what from what I've read, is what the conjecture is. So I don't know.
Okay, because I was always like, where is that other replicant? What's going on there?
Or is it Deckard? Was it Deckard? There's always that.
Deckard too. Yeah, and that's the whole story too, because people are like, oh no, that's the real storyline to this movie.
Yeah.
It's because he's really one of them. And did you notice it when you first saw it? The red light. There's stuff that now that the internet, now that we're doing the show, you could go back and read and hear about what people thought. But I remember the red glow in the eyes of the replicants, and I didn't know if that was like on purpose or if that was just a lighting effect or anything like that. But I was like, no, it can't be coincidence that they all seem to have this red glow, because Rachel had it. And remember the owl?
The owl had it as well. Yeah.
The owl had it too. And the movie opens up. If you go back and watch the opening of it, it opens up with not only the cityscape and the flames going up, but it opens up with a close-up of someone's eyeball. And it's the human eye, because it's watching the world around it. You see the reflection in the iris and the retina. So I was like, okay, that's a human eye. It doesn't have the red glow. And I thought that was Holden. I always thought that was Holden, the first Blade Runner, as he's on his way to the Tyrell Corporation to start interviewing replicants to find them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did they ever tell you if it is, or I'm just assuming it was Holden?
I don't think I haven't read anywhere that I do know that Holden actually survived being shot by Leon at the start.
Yeah.
And he appears in there's a video game that came out many years later that he's sort of the, because he was he was like the Rick Deckard before Rick Deckard. So, but I don't know if it's his eye. It could be.
No, I always thought it was him on the way to the place to do the investigation. Yeah. The other thing you talked about, he survived. There's deleted footage. Well, there's a lot of deleted footage within the movie. There's deleted footage with that actor in it almost looks like a cocoon. He's in life support. Because they mentioned to him, he's like, oh, he's alive as long as no one pulls the plug on him.
Yeah.
And Deckard goes to visit him. And I remember seeing in a magazine, it was the making of Blade Runner. And it's this magazine right back there. And I couldn't find it before the show, but they had pictures of stills of the scenes that they cut out of Blade Runner. There's one with Deckard riding an elevator in the hospital on his way to go see Holden. And there's a gorilla as the elevator operator, like a full out gorilla suit, no explanation. It's just one of those things. It's just there in the background, just like the ostriches are walking through the town when he's cutting through, trying to get to Taffy Lewis's place. You just see different things walking by, and he goes to see Zora, and she's got a snake. There's just weird animals going on throughout the whole place. But that was cut. The scene with Holden was cut. I know there's more with JF Sebastian about some of the stuff that he did too, because like you mentioned earlier, he's got the Methuselah syndrome where he ages. So he builds all those toys to keep himself company. And there was just a scene where he was doing more stuff with them. And Leon too. There was some deleted footage with Leon, but one of the biggest problems I have with this movie is you saw it. I saw the original. We had the voiceover. I didn't mind the voiceover. To be honest, I might be one of the few people that didn't mind it, only because that's the version I first saw. So it's stuck in my head as that's the original Blade Runner. But they threw that in there because test audiences didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
They literally had to have Harrison Ford come in, and it's been reported that he wasn't happy, but like you said, he was contractually obligated to read the narration. So he does a real bad delivery, and they use it anyways. Just so disinterested, no inflection in his voice, no emotion, and he just reads the dialogue. But I don't know. I thought it helped the movie a little bit.
I think so. It's like the hard-boiled detective, though they always have the narration,
Yeah.
They're going from this case to this case, sort of set it up. It's a trope of that noir style of movie. So I didn't mind it either. Again, it's the first thing I saw too, and I thought, oh, it's okay. I didn't even think he was that disinterested. I just thought he was pretty serious and no nonsense. So
well, the other thing is too, he has a narration. He's like cold fish. That's what my wife called me. So you're assuming when you go to his apartment, there's all these photographs there that his wife had left him to go to the off-world colonies because they keep advertising, a new life awaits you in the off-world colonies, a chance to begin again. See, I've watched it enough. But I literally thought he was a guy who had a wife. She left him and all that. So that's why when everyone has this conjecture that he's really a replicant and, he's not really who he's supposed to be, and he's like a Nexus 5. And I don't know. That's why I never bought the whole thing that he was I always thought he was human.
Yeah.
I never thought once that Rick Deckard was really going to become a replicant. So
yeah.
Did you buy into that?
No.
No.
And when you saw Edward James Olmos, doing he had the unicorn, those little origami pieces.
Origami thing.
Yeah, there you go. Very
but
nice.
Here's another bit. When they reissued that movie, because God knows I've got copy after copy of it. You want to talk about being crazy about this movie? All right, let me just see. Here was the original cut. Yep. This is what I got. VHS tape. I need to get a VCR going again. Then I got this version of it. This was the European version.
Cut. Yep.
That's the director cut, and it's got some extra footage of Rutger Hauer killing Tyrell by putting his fingers through his eyeballs and blood comes out. That was like the European one, right? Then we got this one that came out. Oh, no. Before that, Ed, we got, don't forget, I got the deluxe Blade Runner that came in the box that you open up, and it's got the Voight Kampf in here. And inside, we've got a still. Well, we can't do it because of the green screen, but we've got a still from the movie.
Oh, nice.
Pictures. We've got this. We've got a small spinner. Look at this. There's the little flying car.
Oh, that's cool.
Right there. Yeah. And apparently, it's got 5 different versions of the movie in here. 5 different cuts. The original cut, the director's cut, the European cut, the extended. I mean, I have everything you can possibly imagine for this movie, and none of them are complete. None of them feel that way because they go and cut out the end sequence when Deckard leaves with Rachel.
Yep.
When they drive down the street, that's been thrown out of the movie. So you don't know if that's even really part of the movie anymore. I mean, which one do you pick? If someone was going to watch Blade Runner today and they watched us, they go, I don't know that movie. What would you watch?
I would watch the most recent director's cut of it, which has got the additional, they've digitally fixed Zora when she's running through the glass. Yeah. They've done the dialogue enhancement on Harrison Ford when he's talking, where they've got his son to actually record they've fixed up things, and that's the definitive, director's vision of it. So I think that would be worth watching.
That's this cut.
Yeah.
That's the definitive cut, which is basically the same thing as that box set, but now it's in 4K, and it's got a little booklet in there, a little behind the scenes. It's crazy. For a movie that was not successful when it came out, it's insane how many times they've gone back to the well and reissued Blade Runner. Look, this even has a little hologram of Rick Deckard. You can't see it too well, but it changes. It's one of those like motion things.
Oh yeah, well, like those lenticular ones.
It's a lenticular thing, but yeah,
That's
I mean,
cool.
they've gone out of their way. And why would they do that if this movie doesn't continually sell? You know?
I know it's one of those cult classics that sort of has just got under everyone's skin, and is, I think is rightly so a classic now. It just wasn't
I'll tell you
recognized
what,
as
when the
that.
movie came out, you talked about like Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark. You're ready for toys because it's just a natural, but it's a rated R movie. So there's not a lot of toys. And
No.
I have the Blade Runner fan club. See the kit? I have that. It's in this house somewhere. I sent away for it. You got a letter? Because fan clubs, I don't know if people remember this, but we should do a whole show about fan clubs.
Yeah.
They were the thing. There was the Star Wars fan club, the Ghostbusters fan club.
I was in the X-Files fan club.
The Close Encounters of the Third Kind had a fan club where you got this UFO newsletter. Every big kid movie, if you want to call it, had like a fan club. And what you did is you sent in like $5.95 or $10.95, and you'd get little membership cards to the movie saying you were a part of the team, and you'd get like a flyer and sometimes behind the scenes stuff. But it was kind of fun. Blade Runner, they didn't know what to do with it. I'm like, they're thinking, oh yeah, we'll send the kids some stuff. First off, it's rated R. No kids were going to see that movie. There wasn't a lot of merchandise and potential. Only thing that was cool was the spinner.
Yes, and Ertl released on a single card. You could get the spinners and some of the ground cars, and they did a box set as well.
Well, Corgi over in England had some, but I never saw them here in the US. I remember when the movie came out, there was an ad in the back of the magazine, and they had Rick Deckard's sedan, which was like a brownish car.
Yep.
And then they had the bluish spinner, but they were Corgi vehicles, and Corgi was over in the UK, so I never got to see them here. But I don't know. I'm just saying there was some merchandise there. But before we forget, there was comic books, Marvel Comics.
Oh.
Couple versions of it. Yep, there you go. That cover's by Tom Palmer, and that's back there. Then that's a part of the 2-issue set. Then they put it together in a Marvel special magazine with the cover by legendary artist Jim Steranko. And then here's another version of it in paperback form, which is basically the same movie.
Yeah. Now
they got Al Williamson to do the artwork. Now, Al Williamson was the guy who did The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi adaptations for Marvel too. So it has that cool, futuristic Flash Gordon look to it. I think the book looks better than the movie sometimes, but it is what it is. And the only other merchandise they had, look at this, back in the day. Look at that. I still have it. The Blade Runner.
Ooh.
12 dazzling full color moments from the blockbuster film. Harrison Ford is Blade Runner. And this cost me a whopping $9.95 back in the day. It was put out by Blue Dolphin Press. Craziness.
Yeah, I think they also had the illustrated screenplay. I think was one of the things that they did, something like that as well.
Oh, I don't remember that one. No, but it's cool. And like you said, it had a bunch of video games. I think Blade Runner had about 2 or 3, if I recall. One of them came out in the 80s, not too far after the movie. But the one I remember came out in the late 90s. And it was one of the first, like, I don't know what you want to call it, point of view games, where you walk through the world of Los Angeles, and you got to bump into some Blade Runner characters. I think Gaff was in it. And I think Leon, you bump into Leon, and you're on like a different case that's going on at the same time as the Blade Runner movie is. So you're like, almost 2 steps away from bumping into Rick Deckard at the whole thing.
And of course, fast forward many, many years, and we get a sequel to Blade Runner 2049. Yes.
Dun, dun. Which is also, I love this movie. I liked it. I saw it in the theaters. I thought it was good.
I liked it. Again, I thought the production design was fantastic. One thing I remember us saying was Harrison Ford takes about, an hour and 10 minutes to get into the movie or something like that.
Yeah.
It's production design is great. Anna de Armas.
Oh, the production designer?
No,
name is
Anna, the Bond girl from.
the pretty girl. Sorry about that. I was looking at the back. I was like, oh yeah, that would be Anna de Armas.
Yes, I thought
Everybody
so.
loves Anna de Armas.
Yes,
She is something else.
Yeah.
She is, yeah. And Ryan Gosling plays Joe,
yes,
and he's on the case because in the beginning of the film, they find out that Rachel, played by Sean Young's character in the original movie, not only is she passed away, she's dead, she had given birth. And that's like the whole dynamic behind this movie. Like, how could that be? She wasn't a real person. She was a replicant. And, you know, where's Deckard? Because Deckard knew all about it because he went off with her at the end of the movie. How does this happen? So that's the whole story. Ryan Gosling plays Joe. He's another Blade Runner. His job is to hunt down replicants that get away. And I thought the production value, it's a good sequel to the original movie. And
it's directed by, now I'm gonna I always butcher his name when I say
his name,
Denis Villeneuve.
That's good enough.
Okay, of course, who went on to direct Dune and is working on.
I'm looking at Robin, Jared Leto's in it, Robin Wright's in it. We got,
and they have a CGI Sean Young as Rachel as a
that was something else how they put her in there because her name was on the credits too. This one is rated R, just like the original movie.
Yeah, and
there's some sequence in there. Again, maybe some people thought it was a bit too long. Everything's a little bit too long nowadays, but I don't know. I enjoyed the picture, and I just noticed there was a video game that came out. I never got Blade Runner Revelations.
I played. No, it wasn't really a game. There was a virtual reality experience.
Maybe that's what this is.
Where you got to fly around in a spinner, which was kind of fun. So
it's a download here inside my Blu-ray. It says download this right now. Yeah.
So that was kind of good. Again, it didn't do well at the box office either.
No,
it was critically acclaimed, but it did not do well.
Well, you know what? We were skipping a whole bunch of stuff here because back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there were novelization sequels to Blade Runner by an author named K.W. Jeter.
Okay.
Because I have them. There was 3 of them. One was called like Replican Nights. And what they did is they went back into the story. It was an actual sequel to the original Blade Runner movie. And one of the storylines had that they were making a movie about what happened to Rick Deckard, and Deckard's in the book, and a lot of the other Gaff is in the book too, and it's like this whole weird story, another world that's like, oh no, Rick Deckard, this is what happened after you saw the movie, that he came back to being a detective, and it's very, very odd. I don't think they're still in print any longer, but there were 3 paperback sequels to Blade Runner by this Jeter, K.W. Jeter author, and they tried. I mean, you know, even now there's Blade Runner comic books that are out there by Dark Horse. There's a bunch of them out, and they come out regularly. They're like on a monthly schedule. They've been running for a couple years now. There's a new Blade Runner anime cartoon out there. I think it's called Blade Runner Black Lotus. It's got Jessica Hennick, who was at one of my shows. She's the voice of the main character, and it takes place, I don't know if it's a prequel so much. It goes back to the Harrison Ford era of the story too. But I don't know. There's a lot to say about Blade Runner, and you could also just phone it off. A lot of people just don't like it. They don't even want to waste their time with it. So
I mean, I can get that, but it's definitely worth watching at least once if you haven't. If you're watching this show up to this point, thank you for sticking with us. And I would certainly say, you know, do watch it. It'd be interesting to watch that and Blade Runner 2049, you know, back to back, and see what you think, and read the original novel and see how you can sort of see what they took and what they left out, because it is.
You know what I was going to say?
Yeah.
You could download the audiobook like this. I listened to this years ago. You know what's so funny? This came out in 1991. Okay. You know who the voices are that narrate this book are? Matthew Modine plays Rick Deckard, and a young Callista Flockhart plays Rachel. How weird is that? Because as we all know, she would grow up to become Harrison Ford's daughter. I mean wife. That's a weird bit of fate that Callista Flockhart is the voice of Rachel, and she ends up marrying Harrison Ford
in the original novel. And I was going to say, Philip K. Dick, he was basically he read, when they were developing the story and everything like that, the script. He was, against it, didn't like it. Anyway, he eventually got to see the casting. He sadly died before the film came out in 1982, but he did get to see
42.
about 10 minutes of footage, and he thought it brought his world to life. So it did have his stamp of approval.
It did. He died unfortunately age 42 years old. He also did he did a bunch of books. There's a whole new series on Amazon Prime based on his books. In fact, The Man in the High Castle. That's a Philip K. Dick story. The movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger,
The Running Man,
where he goes. That's a Stephen King. The Mars one.
Oh, Total Recall.
He goes, Total Recall. That's a Philip K. Dick story. So there's a lot of Philip K. Dick stories. There's another sequel to Blade Runner that we didn't even mention, but it's a very obscure one. At the end of the movie, Roy Batty does this whole soliloquy that was written on the set. It's called, Tears in the Rain. That was written by Rutger Hauer. And he's like, I've watched sea beams glitter in the darkness at Tannhauser Gate. Tannhauser Gate, there's a movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and I believe it was Kurt Russell, where there was Dolph Lundgren, where there's these cyborg robot army guys in the future.
Yeah, you're thinking Universal Soldier.
Universal Soldier, that takes place at Tannhauser Gate. They meant the sea beams glitter in the darkness. That battle is in that movie. So in a weird way, that's like a side sequel to Blade Runner or prequel, whatever you want to call it, because those soldiers are replicants basically. And that's the characters that Roy Batty and the rest of them play. And here's another quick note for you. I bet you never noticed it too. Roy Batty's incept date was January 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Blade Runner opens up November 2019. At the end of the film, Roy Batty just dies. He's like, time to die, and he just falls down. How long did you think the movie Blade Runner took place on screen?
A couple of days.
I always thought it was a couple of days too. And then somebody said, oh no, the reason why he dies is because that whole investigation starts in late November, ends about 2 months later, and that's why he died. I'm like, I don't think that's really part of the story. I thought it was a couple days. Like since the time they landed there, they got into the Tyrell Corporation, and Deckard's on the case. I'm saying a week or so. That's about it. I'm not saying 2 months. There's no way that it was 2 months. But that's why they said he just died like that, because it was like, oh, it's been 2 months, and he turns off.
Well, I figure they don't have an exact date. It's sort of like it's in the ballpark, isn't it? Or do they just go, it's
there's actually a date. It says it when you watch the movie. If you freeze frame, it'll say April 16th, 20 something. So there's actually
I didn't. I can't remember that. So, there you go.
Before we sign off real quick.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, as we always do, you got to look at the merchandise.
Yeah. So we spoke about the Erdl cars. These that's Frankenstein. Isn't that Frankenstein?
No, that's Deckard.
He looks like Frankenstein with his short sleeves like that.
Fire bad. Replicants good. No, this is from Blade Runner 2019. And you can't be a pop culture icon without having a Funko Pop. This is from the Blade Runner 2049. There's also a whole line of Blade Runner original 40th anniversary. They're out there. There's one chase figure. I don't have that one. That's Roy Batty in his black leather underwear. So I'm looking for that. So if anybody's out there wants to send me Roy Batty in his black leather underwear, you go. What was the other thing that came out?
What about the drink, the alcohol?
Oh, how can I forget? One of the cool tie-ins to Blade Runner 2049 was Harrison Ford drinks a lot on screen and off screen, but in the movie he's drinking this, and this came out from a Johnny Walker Black Label, because this is the bottle he's drinking in the movie, and I have it here. And when we get our 1,000th viewer, I will drink this entire bottle of Johnny Walker right on camera and die of alcohol poisoning. So if you want to see somebody die on camera, keep watching this show.
Don't do that. Some say we have creatively died earlier on. Maybe that's what they're going to say, but that's okay. There was a few things out there. So, Blade Runner, it's not for everyone's taste, but if you're watching this show, odds are you've already seen it. If you haven't, go watch it. It's entertaining, and there is certainly a lot to look at.
Would you say it's one of Harrison Ford's greatest performances?
It's one of greatest. It's a
performance.
Well, he's pretty good. He doesn't say a lot in it.
No, but I'm saying if you have to look at, Han Solo, Indiana Jones. Probably this one. I mean, what's the next big Harrison Ford movie?
Yeah, he's good as
John Book
in Witness.
Yeah, Witness.
And that's Ali Fox in The Mysterious Ghost.
I don't think people like that movie.
No, I don't think they do.
I don't know. I think this stands out. Plus, he made a sequel to it.
Yeah, true.
He's done the sequel to Han Solo. He's done a sequel to Indiana Jones, which he's doing now.
Yeah.
And he did one here for Rick Deckard. So real quick, you got to be a total Harrison Ford nut to notice this. If you ever saw the movie, what was the one he did with his wife? Random Hearts. His wife gets killed in a plane crash. There's a scene in that movie where Harrison is a cop. He goes to a bar. Who's the bartender? But Emmett Walsh. And they sit there and they have a drink. So it's the same one that was his police chief that I still can't think of his name. But they have a scene together. And he's
O'Leary. Sergeant O'Leary. That's who it was.
Not Sergeant O'Leary. Sergeant. What was the one from Batman? Begorra, Chief O'Hara. Chief O'Hara.
That's right.
No. Anyway, he's in that movie with Harrison Ford for one brief scene, and they do a little bit. It's kind of fun to watch. I'm like, oh look, there they were. The real another problem with Blade Runner bothers me when they're showing Harrison Ford the footage of the replicants that escaped. There's so much smoke in that room. It's not funny. But if you watch the movie, neither character's smoking a cigarette. It's like, what's going on there? There's like
I need to fix their air conditioner. Obviously, something.
I don't know what's happening in that movie, but there's like smoke billowing out between the two characters as they're trying to discuss what's happening. I'm like, who lit a cigarette and just let it sit there for a while?
I know.
But anyway,
no wonder the atmosphere is so bad.
Everyone's still alive, except unfortunately Rutger Hauer passed away.
He did.
I met the whole cast a couple years ago. Bill Sanderson, who played JF Sebastian, funniest guy in the whole bit. Rutger Hauer, little strange at the time. He was riding a bike around the con the entire time. Smoked a cigarette with one drag. Never saw anybody do that. He had to go back to do his photo op. He was smoking a cigarette, did one massive inhale. The entire cigarette turned to ash. And then he just walked away. And you wonder how he died a year or two later. But that's it. That's all I got.
So, Mitch, if you want to find out more about Blade Runner or any other classic sci-fi film that we have covered, it's, maybe Logan's Run, of course, Empire Strikes Back, Flash Gordon, which has also got great production design, I must say, totally different to Blade Runner. What can you do?
Well, Ed, you could simply tell people that you always plan on putting a unicorn in the movie and then cut movie out of your other movie, Legend, with Tom Cruise with the unicorn and see, oh, no, that's what I really meant. No, I'm sorry. It's a lot easier than that, Ed. All you do is hit the subscribe button and you will come along with me and Ed on another magical mystery tour as we talk about TV, movies, and more on the Mitch and Ed Excellent Adventure.
And don't forget, feel free, please, to write down a comment if you liked it and give a suggestion on maybe something we can look at on our next adventure. But that's all for this time. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Ed Dollister.
And this is Roy Batty's son, Bob Batty.
Bob Batty. Anyway.
Bob Batty.
I thought you'd be Maddie. Wouldn't you be Maddie Batty?
Maddie Batty. Look at that.
That's it.
Look, I had a dream about this, Ed.
There you go. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Bye.